we get to hear about board games and how to use games to help children work through stress in life. So today we are joined by Clint Broadbent. He has a master's degree in family life and human development from Utah State University and a PhD in human development and family sciences from Oklahoma State University. His specialty is in families that have a child with a disability. In Cedar City with his beautiful wife, Abby, and their 4 daughters. Clint, how are you doing today?
I'm doing awesome.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you taking the time to prepare and share with us your knowledge. Take it away.
Sounds good. And just so everyone can look at my wonderful quarantine hair, I know some people are here just to see how long and how unruly my hair is getting. Hair product can only do so much. So, all right. So before I get started, if you guys, now could we get the screen sharing enabled? So we can get going here. Let me see here. There we go. Perfect. All right, I got a little slideshow. Old habits die hard, I would say. So give me just 1 second. Let's see. Perfect. Okay, that should work. Okay, so let's kind of get started. So again, I appreciate the introduction. I'm really excited to talk about this. Is the people that know me, it's an inside joke that I love board games, and while my specialty is not in board games, I still love to do them on my free time. And the more and more I study families, the more and more the research is really interesting that shows how games can help people, but also like how games can really help kids and help them navigate some difficulties that we have. Now, when we think about play, we think particularly about kids, but really play is universal. A lot of the great adages that we're used to come from some type of play. One of my favorite quotes is from George Bernard Shaw. He says that we don't stop playing because we grow old. We grow old because we stop playing. And that kind of goes to this idea of, as the older we get, we tend not to take risks anymore. We tend to kind of stick with what we know. I love just my grandparents, but I always used to know that my grandparents would just keep doing the same thing over and over again. The risk taking wasn't there. The only time I always remembered, I had my grandfather, he lived, and I will tell you what, I loved watching him. He would do the same thing every day. He'd just slather on his jam on his toast. He'd have his drink, and he would just do the same thing. It was like clockwork. But I tell you what, whenever we would play cards, the guy was a gambler. He took risks, and we played a partner game, a kind of a canasta type game. And my grandmother can attest that Grandpa would just he would sometimes sink the partnership taking risks, and that's awesome. Games and play are an awesome idea of taking risks and exploring. This really applies to kids as well. Plato, one of the great philosophers, says, "Do not keep children to their studies by compulsion, but by play." That kind of goes into this idea of how Plato understood that kids can be forced to do worksheets, as most of you mothers who are teaching kids at doing homeschool right now, you can threaten your kids with no dessert, and you probably are going to get them to do it, but they're not going to like it. And one of my favorite, and one of the interesting things is Mary Poppins had it right in the idea of that in every job there must be done, there is an element of fun. You must find the fun and snap the job's a game. And I love that. I love that little song, but it is true. The adage is true. If we can make things fun for our kids, you'll find that you'll fight with your kids less as you're sitting there trying to get them to do something. If you can find an element of fun, you can help increase the relationship with your kids. It really does work. And the last thing is kind of for us people that are getting older, that play has been a man's most useful preoccupation. With everything that's gone on in our world, there has to be someone that looks at life and says, what would life be like if it wasn't the same? Henry Ford once said that if I asked people back then what they wanted from a car, Henry Ford is the one that really popularized the automobile. He said, if I would have asked the people what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. It takes inventors and people to look at life and see what life is like in a different way. And that takes a certain ability of playfulness, of looking outside and thinking outside the box. What are the benefits of play? There's a lot of research that goes into what helps play. We tend to find that kids that play, they tend to have improved learning skills, which means that they tend to learn earlier about learning, okay? So in other words, for all of the people that have gone through education and gone on to do advanced degrees, I would tell you that someone that has a PhD or a master's, they're smart in that they know that they have to work hard to learn. They don't know everything. And people who play games, who try those other things, they tend to learn, they tend to find a shortcut in learning. They tend to learn faster. And the other interesting thing is they actually have an increased desire to learn. That usually in the education system, as you guys know, there's an element of, there are rules. And if you understand the rules of the game, you tend to do better. There are also three major developmental regions. When we talk about developmental research, we have cognitive development, physical development, and socio-emotional development. And play is tied into all of them. That play can help improve development in children and adults, believe it or not, in all three major developmental regions. And the last but not least is we're talking about an unprecedented time. We will talk about this time being quarantined for the rest of our lives. It will be a, hey, remember when? And actually we find in the research that playfulness can help you be more resilient to trauma and to life-changing situations. And the two major mechanisms that the researchers found were positive affect and self-regulation. And usually with those things some people are born with positive affect, but a lot of people can learn it. And you can learn that through playfulness and games. So the question is okay, Clint, so if I play Parcheesi for the rest of my life, is that going to make me a happier person? Well, that's a good question. I'm going to tell you a little bit about why games do work. Why does this research show that it is? Is this like a magical pill? And a lot of the tricks that come with board games and playfulness is some of these they're little things. Actually, we call it the magic circle. A Dutch theorist, his name was Johan, I'm going to say it's Huizinga, I think it is. Theorist, and he came up with this idea of the magic circle. And he noticed that when it came with play and games, that oftentimes people create a designated area where rules of the outside world are temporarily suspended in favor of a different set of agreed upon rules. All right. So when we talk about this, the best way I can explain this is, some people would look at like this invisible barrier around somebody, but in all honesty, it's not that. The barrier or the circle is constructed by the people within the circle. So a good way of explaining this would be something like this. If you came into a room and you saw two people gritting their teeth and staring at each other as much as you can, you notice that their eyes aren't shutting and that they're sweating and that they're looking at each other and they're not blinking, they're doing things. You would think those two people are crazy, right? However, if you put that into the context of them sitting and playing the staring contest, which my daughters do on occasion, they'll sit there and they'll stare at each other for, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. They got bloodshot eyes at the end. As parents, sometimes you walk in a room and your kids are like doing something really weird, like staring at each other or doing something weird, and you just like look at them, you just turn around and walk the other way. You're not in the magic circle. You don't understand what's going on. But the funny thing is while it looks weird to you on the outside looking in, it makes total sense for kids. They've constructed this rule. Sometimes they talk about the rules, all right? Sometimes it's like, okay, we're playing the staring game, and they automatically know what that means, what the staring game means. And they'll sit there and stare at each other. And the rules are really weird if you're looking on the outside, but it makes total sense for them. All right. We see this with imaginary play. How many times do we have kids that play like the floor is lava and they're jumping on pillows and they're throwing out blankets and they're constructing this. And then all of a sudden, you have a child that walks in and all of a sudden they say something like, the floor is chocolate. And all of a sudden, the kid, you walk in, like I said, parents outside the thing, walk in the thing, and the kids are like licking the floor. And you're like, I can't believe these guys have my same genetic material. Like, don't lick the floor. But they create a reality together. And it is not only important, but essential that we look at life a different way, that we try things out. Like I told you about Henry Ford. Somebody had to create a world where horses were not the main way of transportation. And he had to live in that area and think about, what would it be like? What would this look like? What would be happening? Kids do that all the time. Kids pretend to play house. How many times have we seen kids that play house? What are they doing when playing house? They're creating a magic circle in which they can do things that they normally can't. Mom won't let them, hopefully, operate the oven, or the stove. But if we can create an imaginary space where I can operate the stove, they're getting essential practice. When I teach my classes, I tell my students that your kids have a job. Their job is to play. By playing, they develop. Kids that play more develop more. And so that's kind of the interesting thing. Board games are the same way. Have you ever been in a situation where you've played, you sit with this like new couple or these new people, and all of a sudden, like, there's this super awkward silence. Who talks? What do we do? I don't know. Am I going to say something that's going to offend somebody? It makes you nervous. But what we found is that, if I get out a little game, okay, if I get out a game and everybody in the room or around the table everyone around the table has the same set of rules, I've seen people come alive. I've seen people that barely talk in conversation stand up and flail their arms. And what is it that about games? What is it about play that brings people out of their shells? I lovingly call, board games a social lubricant, which just means, sometimes it's just, it makes things smoother. And one of the things that we find in theory is that it's wonderful. We tend to do well when we can predict what's going to happen next. So if I take my turn in the game, I know that next time it's going to be Natalie's turn, and then Lisa's turn, then Clay's turn. We're going to playing games and playing by the rules gives you predictability, and predictability can give you security, okay? The other thing that's really great about games is they give you a safe place to explore. And that is pretty awesome. Not many places in life can we make a terrible mistake. And after that terrible mistake, we can fold up a board and say, wow, that was a terrible mistake. I'll do better next time. If I make a terrible mistake, at work or with my wife, there might be some sleeping on the couch that's going to happen, Board games, usually you can make a mistake in board games and not end up sleeping on the couch. I won't say that the two have never happened before, but it doesn't happen as often, I'll say. Increased mindfulness. This, guys, is really interesting. Mindfulness is something in the research that not many people know about, but it's so important. Mindfulness is centuries old, even thousands of years old. This idea of staying in the present. Oftentimes, I'm sure a lot of you have been sitting down and then all of a sudden you have this compulsion to turn on the news or to go look at social media or do something that allows you to look at the world and look at what's going on and thinking to yourself, oh crap, the world is going to pot. And we tend to think about that. And when I work with couples and I work with individuals, I tend to find out very quickly people that have anxiety and depression, because people with anxiety tend to worry about the future. It's all about the future. What's going to happen next? I don't know. Am I going to get enough toilet paper? I only have 100 rolls left. What are we going to do? I tend to see that with anxiety. But people that are depressed, they tend to focus on what happened in the past. All right. Oh, I can never change this about myself. It's always the same. Oh, this is never going to change. And we find that people that are more mindful, all right, that keep their thoughts in the present. What's going on? Can you focus on the board game? Can you focus on the imaginary play that you're doing? We tend to see that people that can do that for a little bit of time and stay focused on the present, they're happier. They tend to have lower depression and anxiety symptoms. Mindfulness is really important. And now, while there are lots of meditation techniques, there are similarities between meditation and board games. They can be therapeutic. My parents and my family knows I love to explore in games. I like to do things. However, I have family members that would play the same game, have played hundreds of games of the same card game. And why do they do that? They've already won the game. They've already beat it. It's because it helps focus them. You're not worrying about what's going to happen at your job tomorrow if you're playing this game. You're not, the great thing also is that as you're looking at this focuses you in on the people that are around the table. And I think that all of you looking at your kids that have cell phones, that have those type of things, it is so easy to get distracted and to focus on what's not here. But board games allow you to focus in on what's happening right now. You get to enjoy this. You get to enjoy things. You get to make memories together. Those memories are often made because a cell phone's not involved. And your outlet for looking toward the future for your anxiety or looking at how things have been bad in the past is taken away. And so a lot of people ask, why do games work? There are a lot of different reasons that go into it, but these are just a few. All right. So let's talk about this. So I want to talk about kids because I think that sometimes we look at our kids and we're like, how can I help them? So we have this magic circle. We have all these things that Clint's talking about. How can I help tie my kids into these games? How can I help tap these in? What are the benefits for my kids? If we play a game, what's that going to help? What's going to help with them? And I have 5 real steps of children that I want to talk about. So first, I'm talking about infancy. Then I'm going to talk about toddlerhood, early childhood, late childhood, and those dreaded adolescents. Okay, so let's start off with infancy. So we look at infancy, and some of the benefits that we tend to find out is games are a developmental stepping stone. Most of you are like, I'm sorry, my 1-year-old's not going to be able to play chess. I can't play games with them. No, games are not always just what you think they are. They're not checkers. They're not, they're not tic-tac-toe. They can be anything in which you are in the same area, creating the same zone in which you guys are focusing back and forth with each other. So some of the games that we tend to think are not traditional games. Some of them are games like peekaboo. Peekaboo, we talk about that all the time. We play peekaboo with kids. They love that. They're mystified with that. We talk about this. There's a guy named Jean Piaget that talks about different developmental milestones. And one of them is called object permanence. And that is the ability to look at a kid and for a kid to understand that even though your hands are in front of your face, that you're still there, okay? It's really interesting that you have kids that do that. I have a 6-month-old daughter that if I put my hands in front of my face and then pull them away, it's magic to her. It just blows her mind, okay? It's because she thinks, Clint, that dad disappeared and then reappeared. It's magic, all right? It's magic. And Piaget says that as we continue to play with our kids, they slowly learn that dad is behind those hands. And you can do that with play. It's really interesting. Social development is also super important. Social development is things of like reading babies' faces, all right? Can a baby look at your face and mimic what you're doing, okay? We talk about it like, we call it, it can be called like emotion mirroring. It's the ability for a child to look at mom when she smiles and to smile back. To stick your tongue out to a baby and have her try and like get her tongue out to her teeth, and then she does it again, and mom rewards her with, oh, you're so cute, you're so great, and baby, you got baby. She loves it, she loves it. I'm like, oh my goodness, I love that sound. I'm gonna do it again. And that's playing, that's playfulness, that's going through. One other one that I always tend to do, and this is something that's funny for me, and I know there are some guys, some men in the audience that are going to watch this, and they'll be like, "Oh, well, moms and babies always get the same thing. They get the benefit, right? Babies always love moms more, but dads actually can do some really great stuff. I love this. There's a research that's fascinating, and that is that there's a study on language development with kids, and kids that have parents that are more affluent, okay? So they looked at families that were more affluent and families that were on welfare, that were less affluent. And they noticed something drastic. They found out that in terms of parents who are on welfare, tend to have babies that are in families that tend to be on welfare. They tend to hear these babies about 600 words an hour, okay? But interestingly enough, for affluent families, they tend to hear 2,100 words per minute. That's a 1,500 word difference per hour. To put this in context, by the time a child turns the age of 3, the child that lives in this affluent family that is using 2,100 words an hour has heard a total of 30 million words more than the child on welfare. Now, does that mean that affluent parents the kids with affluent parents are going to be great? No. Most parents who are on welfare, one of the explaining factors could be that some parents just don't know that they're supposed to talk to their kids. All right? So one of the games that I always do to my daughter, like I said, I have a 6-month-old. You're going to see her in a second. I have a 6-month-old, and she is wonderful. I love her. But sometimes, you would believe it, it's not always the easiest to have a conversation with a 6-month-old, okay? She's not going to be bouncing words back. She's not going to be teaching you new vocabulary words. But you need to talk to your kid. And sometimes, if you open up a dictionary and start reading to your kid, doesn't matter what you're talking about. You could, sing a song. You could do this type of thing. Moms just have it wired. I hear my wife just carrying my baby around. She's just talking to the baby all the time. And so sometimes it's hard for me. And so sometimes I'd like to play a game. And I'm making sure I can tell my daughter anything in the right voice, and she's going to love it. I can just say, Daddy's super stressed about doing this presentation on Zoom, and I don't know what's going on. Like, I'm playing a game with her, like I'm having a real conversation with my daughter. And she has no idea what I'm talking about. But she hears my voice and she's like, hey, Dad's happy, great. And, but it helps. And so, dads, if you struggle talking with your babies, just talk about it. Like, I'm changing your bum. My family makes fun of me. If we're like applying, if baby needs like a lotion on, I have a lotion applying song. I have a changing bum song. I have I loved it. One of my things, my dad used to sing a Swedish little jig song whenever he'd dry us off after our thing, and we pass it on to our kids. Just talking to our kids is immensely thing. You would think that they're not going to be speaking for another year or so, but they are absorbing everything. Okay. Next thing is about kids is what we call synchrony. It's attachment. If you talk to your kids and you play with your kids, guess what ends up happening is your kids tend to like you more. All right. They tend to connect with you. The research is called like attachment. And we can do a lot of things. We can, by having physical touch with our children, by holding your child's hand, you create attachment. And developmentally, the child needs to know, I am going to be safe with mom and dad. I know this is going to be a good thing for me. And so sometimes, like I said, by cooing to your baby and having her talk back and then talking to your baby, it creates what we call synchrony. It's being synchronous. It's working together. Babies hear that. They see it with mom and dad, and they just love it. They really it draws them in and it connects them. So going over that, some games that you can play: peekaboo, emotional mirroring, okay? Playful conversation. It might be in song form. It might just be telling the baby about your day, how things are going. You can also do manipulatives. You can give baby anything and you can hold on to it. Then you can gently take it out of their hand, give it back to them, play with their hands. Manipulating things with them together in this area can improve their developmental trajectory and increase attachment. All right. I just want to show you a quick video. I know I'm already going along, but this is my beautiful baby girl, Sadie, right here. And this is Sadie, and this is her sister, Annie. Okay. And this is my wife, Abby, and they're playing, and my oldest daughter is actually filming this. I want you to watch this real quick. And most people would look and say, this is just weird, like this is just doing something weird. This is play. It doesn't need to be complex, but you can watch this. So just watching this briefly, if you guys can hear the sound. Now watch my daughter, watch Annie. She grabs the towel. She wants to play too. Look at that. I love showing people this because you'll notice that mom and baby were playing, but all of a sudden, sister wanted to join in. And you'll notice that she grabs it, and then mom grabs the towel, and she learns, well, mom is the one that needs to throw it to the baby. So what does Annie do? She grabs the towel, holds it up, I'm playing too, and then throws it to mom so mom can throw the towel. It's interesting. If you look at this and it's so simple, but this is complex play for kids. And all of them are enjoying it. You can see that baby is smiling. She is cooing. She's giggling. That's her way of talking back. She's working with you. She's actually playing with you. And she is 6 months old, about 5. She's about 5 here, but 5 or 6 months old, and she's playing with you. You can play with your kids, okay? You can play with kids even if they're super young. All right, so let's talk about toddlerhood, all right? Toddlerhood is ages 2 to 4. This is when you're starting to get the kids that are walking around and running, and all of a sudden that is something that's super cool, super interesting for them. This is way you don't trick, I use the wrong word there, but you can trick your kids to learning and having fun and just enjoying it, all right? I'll play games with my kids like hide and seek, okay? And sometimes I'll be the one that seeks a lot because the kids like to run around the house and hide and do those type of things. And that's why I do that. We talk about in development, we talk about 2 different types of development. Gross motor development. Gross, by the way, is not like poop or barf or anything like that. Actually, gross is like big parts of your body. It's your trunk, your arms, your legs. This is the running, jumping. This is the playing. These are the big physical parts of your life. Fine motor skills are things when you use your fingers. So using a pencil, grabbing a crayon, pinching something, something with fine, small motor development. You can get kids to do different things. So by playing with your kids, by doing things like Simon Says, okay, you can get them to use their body, practice. Babies just don't learn how to walk. I think they have to try it to make mistakes. If you're going to get good at moving around, you got to be playing around. You got to work, right? You got to get into it. And so what better way of getting them active and doing stuff than playing a game, all right? You could do things like social development, turn taking, effortful control, which is this idea of literally extending or expending effort to do something, okay? I watched this with my 3-year-old, and I will tell you, she uses just about every fiber of her being not to grab the dice and stick it in her mouth, So getting them to take turns, okay? So you took a turn, now it's your sister's turn, now it's your other sister's turn, then it's your turn. Working with them, helping them take their turn, be patient, okay? I also see this great thing in this idea of a change of context, okay? Most of the time, as parents, we're used to the role of telling your kids, hey, do this, do that, go and do this. You're always the boss. Don't be the boss, Mom. Why are you bossing me around? Games are a wonderful way of turning the tables, all right? So in other words, at some point, I want your kid to play Simon Says and to tell Mom, dance, Mom, dance. Simon Says dance, I'm in charge now, all right? That's a good feeling for a kid, and it's not going to spoil them. It's actually going to build your relationship, which is actually what's going to be the social capital that's going to get them to do things in the future. So it's really interesting. And then what we tend to find is, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, but talking to kids, cooperating with them. There are a lot of different games. There are a lot of different games out there that are nowadays that you can actually work together as a group to beat the game. There are no winners. Well, you either win together or lose together. It's wonderful. I play those with my children, and they love to cheer their siblings on. Too often, I'm sure in our past, we remember if I win, I get to rub it in everyone's face for the rest of the day, and I'm the king. And there are better ways now. You want your kids to work together. It's a wonderful way of doing that. Hide and seek, Simon Says. My family, we do a dance party. So in other words, We turn on this catchy song that everybody loves, and one person leads the people in singing, doing the dance. You know, maybe my daughter my daughter, when she was young, she used to do this thing where she'd stick her arm up and dance around, and everyone in the house would stick their arm up and dance around. And that mimicry or echoing with the kids love that. And what you're doing there is, if you remember in your childhood, the things that you remember about your parents oftentimes are when your parents weren't acting like parents, that they were doing stuff with you and not just telling you what to do. It's wonderful to have that. It's wonderful to have that. All right, so Natalie, I'm gonna ask your forgiveness. I just love this stuff, and I'm at 30. I'm running a little long. Is it okay if I wrap it up in about 10?
You can take 10. Yeah, do it.
Okay, I'm gonna go a little faster.
Okay.
So, anyways, some traditional kids board games: Chutes and Ladders, Candyland. It's wonderful things. Okay, early childhood. This is awesome. Socio-emotional development. We start talking about this when kids start to get to 5 to 7. They're starting to look and say, what is it like for that person over there? I'm looking at this, and how is that person feeling? Can I put that person in my shoes? We call it theory of the mind. It's being able to take someone else's perspective. And oftentimes, this is where you can start teaching your kids. You can't teach them at 3. You can't expect your 3-year-old to be a good winner or loser. They're probably going to go spit in their sister's hair if they lose. Like, they're going to be terrible losers. And that's okay. That's okay. We usually like to aim for things, for them to be better. So at 5 to 7, they're starting to get able to look at it and say, being a good winner, being a good loser, good game. I try teaching my girls at the end of every game, win or lose, you turn to the person and say, good game, okay? Now, it may take some time, okay? I usually, but that's a great thing to start teaching your kids. It might take them years to be a good winner or loser, but that practice can start young. Another thing is cognitive development. They're starting to work on their mathematics. There are different things like subitizing, and a big thanks to Dr. Brown Nelson. She helped me with these 2 things, but subitizing is really interesting. Everyone's seen a die before, and I don't even need to show you very often. I can just show you real quick a thing. I can show you for 1 second. I can show you different sides of a die, and you can see it for 1/10 of a second, and you'll know how many dots are on there. You're not counting the dots. You just know the way that they're placed. And so when I hold up a die, I can show you just real briefly, and you know exactly how many there are. Not because you count the dots, but subitizing is the ability to see things on sight and know how many there are. So again, like seeing 3 dots in 2 sets of lines, I know that's 6, and so kids start to learn that. They start to learn quick counting. I usually use, some of you guys could do this, but you guys could cut out or do different things of I have little tokens here, all right? I have little tokens. I give my girls tokens when they earn points in a game. And these little tokens, they love it because once they know that they get 5 of these little 1 tokens, they can give me those 1s and get a 5. And every single time I get out the tokens, even if there is like a number track around the board, my girls don't want that. They want the tokens because it helps them work on math. They love it. It's more fun to use tokens and do math than moving a track around the board. They love it. It's really great. Again, more games to play. Hopscotch, man, that's a great way of developing your gross motor skills. Jumping, you can start using strategy when you start tossing a rock and I can't jump on the 3. How am I going to get over the 3, or what am I going to do in that situation? Those are all great things to help with kids.
No, he's not funny.
Late childhood is also really interesting. You start to get this idea at around 8 years old, kids start to get strategic. What wonderful thing to teach them how to be strategic on, in a game than having them be strategic and trying to find a way of getting into the pantry and eating the cookies. All right. We talk about different types of problem solving. Tactical is immediate problem solving. Strategic is more long-term. How do I reach this far end goal? Games teach that. Okay. Physical development. All right. fine coordination. These are things like, you start to get more advanced puzzles. Puzzle pieces start to get smaller. They start to have to do that. They also they can start getting into more deeper rule sets, okay? When they were little, it was, I just wanted to play a ball. Yeah, I wanted to play with a ball. When they get to 8 or 12, they start to learn, well, I got to dribble the ball and I got to put it in the basket to score points. Those type of things you can help them with games, okay? Again, puzzles go throughout the whole developmental life cycle. Great way of helping kids make those changes. Last but not least are the adolescents, okay? This one is so important because most of you, if you're with an adolescent, they just know everything, guys. They do. If you don't know it, they know it. And I love playing games with teens because board games allow them to take safe risks and explore their personality and relationship in a area that is safe. And so while you can't protect your kids from everything, board games are a wonderful way of getting around that. Also, egocentrism or hyper-focus on themselves is a trademark of adolescence. Board games and working together can help kids look outside themselves over hyper-focus on themselves. This thing teaches empathy. This teaches team building. This is really important also, is you want to be in a situation where you're working together with your kid so that when they want to talk to you, they are used to working with you in a cooperative game or those sort of things. They're used to working with you instead of against you all the time, and makes them more likely to talk to you, to open up, to know that that's where you need to go. In terms of this, there are different things. I'm going to teach you this magical thing. For some weird reason, if you've ever heard of social deduction games like Werewolf and Mafia, when we're able to break the quarantine and get together with groups of people, and you can get about 8 people in a room together, 8 people or more, if you want to blow a teenager's mind, you play social deduction games. It just lights their brain on fire. They are just wondering who's the traitor or who's the one that's in. They love it, all right? They love it. I still have kids. I used to work with kids, about 5-6 years ago. We played this game. They still contact me and talk to me about playing Werewolf. And so doing those type of things, working together, is a great feeling, and it can kind of break those things, okay? Just kind of bringing it home real quick. Tips for parents, okay? So I told you all these wonderful things you should do. Here's something that I want to teach you. Number 1, go in with the proper expectations and be flexible. I play games with my daughters all the time. There are still games that I play with my daughters. We still haven't played the rules. We can open up the game and they're like, some of their favorite games, we're not even playing the rules right, but we're playing together and it's wonderful. And we're playing the same rule set and it is fun. Be flexible. You need to understand your kid. If you have a 3-year-old, turns need to be quick. If you make your kid wait for more than 1 or 2 minutes, their finger is going to be in their nose, or they're going to be chewing on a piece on the game. They're just going to lose interest. So understand your audience and work with them. Another great thing with teenagers is use a teenager as a mini parent. Say, hey, if you have a big family and you're like, this person struggles, you can say, hey, Bobby, I want you to help and be on the same team as your little brother. Cooperation, they're working together. They're building a relationship together, okay? If you have small kids and you're playing a little bit more of an advanced game, sometimes I'll give my daughter a card that they're going to play, or they're going to roll the dice for me. We're a team. We're working together. All those little things count, okay? As parents, keep an eye out for learning opportunities. A lot of the times, really silly small games that you think are super boring are amazing because number 1, they're going to engage your kid. They're going to usually be focused in the magic circle, and you can kind of hover outside of the situation, and you can kind of say, what is my kid doing right now? What are they doing? There's something in research that's called the Hawthorne effect. Kids act differently when they know that someone is watching. But for sometimes when you're playing a game and a kid is into it, you can watch them without them really feeling like mom is looking at me weird. So use it, use the thing. Use this time to model pro-social behavior, good behavior, okay? If you lose, be a good loser. If you win, be a good winner, okay? We talk about that all the time. You showing your kid how to act is a great way for them to learn. Effort versus praise. This is one of those interesting ones. The researcher says that if you shower your kid with praise and say, you are the best thing ever, you just beat me in a game, you're the smartest kid I've ever seen. You know what that actually does? That actually makes your kid less likely to take risks in the future because they have to be perfect because they won and then they can't lose next time, or mom and dad will think less of them. Usually my challenge for parents is try not to say the word good job. Now that sounds really weird and it's really hard if you've ever done that. Everyone likes to say good job. Recognize their effort, all right? When my daughter loses or when they win, I always like, oh, so what did you do here? How did you know I had a pair of sixes? You know, and just talking to them, having a conversation. Let them feel like they're smart. What worked for you? Those things are things that they're going to love, all right? Stay in the moment. Be present. You've got things. You've got bills. You've got those other things. I will promise you, as you work with your kids and you focus on your kids, even if the game is, you know, sorry or something like that, if it's Candyland, you can be there present with your kids and you will get a benefit from that. Not only your relationship with your kids, but you will also feel better. So I always tell them that. Last but not least, gaming does not need to be expensive. You don't need to buy fancy games to have fun. A lot of the games that I talked to you guys today, they're easy. They're free. You can do them right now. Don't wake up your kids and do it right now, but you do that. Gaming is just for kids is a myth. We would be better off as a people if we played more, okay? I'm not saying sit on your butt and play games all the time, but take time to play. Try something new. Take risks. We as parents, we suck at taking risks now. We just don't do it. You know, gaming allows us to do that. We don't have time. Make game night a ritual, okay? You don't need to play a super long game. It can be 15 minutes. Find the fun and do it, all right? Find the fun and do it. My family's not a gaming family. Some families are puzzle families. Some families are, you know, a thought exercise. Find something fun that you can do with your family and do it together, all right? Share that explaining thing. Last one, I hate Monopoly. Amen. You know, many a relationship has been ruined by Monopoly. Modern games are great. Did you know that Monopoly is really old? It's older than all of you. All right. Guess what? There have been a lot of great games that have come out in the last year. So modern games are great. I included a little short thing. If you guys want to look at some other games for your family, if you guys want to buy one for Christmas or something like that, there's a little link right there that you can follow. It has a little list of games. It's not exhaustive, but there are a lot of great new games out there, and so you can try that. All right. I am so sorry for going over, but I am done.
That was great, Clint. Thank you. You shared a lot of great information. We do have a few questions. So this one is a two-part question. What about video games? Do kids get the same developmental benefit by playing video games?
That's a great question. You know what? Actually, when we talk about this with video games actually has the magic circle. The magic circle, so sometimes if anyone's ever played a video game and just got sucked in, that's the magic circle. Life just goes away, and that can be a good or a bad thing. The magic thing about play and about games is the people. And video games are wonderful. I enjoy them. I play video games. I play video games on occasion, but it lacks that connection that you can make with other people around the table or your family members. So again, just so while video games are okay, and if parents are monitoring playtime and screen time, I can say video games are not a bad thing. But board games or cooperative play is not the same as video games, even though games are the same. They both have game in the title. It's different. It's different. Worth looking at there. Good question.
Awesome. Okay, 1 second. They had one more. Sorry. Are you there?
Yeah,
okay.
I'm here.
Okay, sorry. Trying to get to the other one. Their other question was, what about games by self versus games with others? So I guess you kind of addressed that. If they're playing those cooperative video games with others, does that kind of change it up?
Yes, just being able there, we've known this, and this is really interesting. The research actually shows that we are social people. We need to see people's faces. That there is a magic that comes from sitting across the table and looking at somebody that actually releases certain chemicals in our brain. That's the reason why some of us are stir crazy and we're FaceTiming all the time. Need to see seeing each other's faces is really important. And playing games by self is great. I know there's a whole group of people that play board games by themselves. And there are benefits to that. You know, problem solving, working through difficult things. I have this difficult problem. But again, in building this relationship, it's an amazing tool for families to strengthen those family relationships. And without you really even knowing it, you know, with having this fun. So yes, playing by yourself is doable. And it can be beneficial. But like I said, the playing with people is where you don't tend to build social relationships playing by yourself.
Okay, so maybe if you did a variety, like
absolutely,
you have the online games, you have the personal games, playing with people. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, it looks like there's another question. Aside from board games, there are multiple other style games. How do you feel about introducing theater of the mind style games?
Absolutely, I love it. I'm not totally in the. I love that type of stuff. I don't get to do it as much, but you know, murder mysteries. There are these new games out that are really fun. They're called Escape the Room games.
All right.
We work together as a group. There, you can buy a little box. I mean, it's like maybe $10. You can buy one online, and you get like they have this thing. You're in like a haunted mansion, and you're trying to break out. And you have to solve problems, and man, it's so fun to work together. Theater of the mind. I think in a lot of cases, especially with adolescence and development, we need to teach kids to put on different hats. All right. I need my kid to act like a musician, even if she doesn't want to be a musician. Try it out. See if you like it. A lot of us don't know what we want to do until we try it once. And so theater of the mind games, you know, murder mysteries, dress up and have fun games. Those are just fun. And usually it's nice to put on a different hat once in a while. And so, yeah, it's a huge benefit, not just for kids, but for adults as well.
Yes, I didn't even know about that till that question. So we're going to have to try that one out. Mm-hmm. That is all the questions. 1 second, let me make sure. See if anyone else has any questions. That is all the questions that I have at this time. And it looks like we're running short on time now anyway. So a great time to stop. Clint, thank you so much for your preparation and letting us know so much about how playing can help us work through things and just give our mind a rest. We really appreciate you joining us tonight.
Well, I really appreciate the opportunity, and I appreciate everyone that came in live and stuck around. And like I said, I'm always open if somebody wants to reach out. I love the topic. If any more questions, I'd love to talk to them about it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. We will call it a night. I guess I will let you know in the future with this class, it will be archived on our website at suu.edu/keep learning. So if anyone wants to watch this in the future, you want to watch it again, it can be found there, and it should be there probably in a few days. So thank you so much. Have a good night.
Okay, see you guys. Have a good one. We'll see you next week.